Have you ever wondered why World War I started? Today, I'll share with you a story about how the First World War began, how it ended, and the history of one of the most dangerous spy organizations that emerged in the aftermath of this war. This story begins in 1902, during the height of British colonial rule over the entire African continent. The British military had set up a temporary camp to punish rebellious Africans resisting their authority. In charge of this camp was a man named General Kitchener. One fateful day, the camp was visited by a British commander named Orlando, who had traveled all the way from Britain with his young son, Conrad, his wife Emily, and their loyal driver Shola. As Commander Orlando inspected the camp, he was appalled by the dire conditions. While discussing these issues with General Kitchener, his wife Emily came to call him away. Tragically, at that very moment, a group of revolutionary African rebels launched a covert attack aimed at assassinating General Kitchener. In the chaos, Orlando was wounded by a gunshot to his leg, and while Kitchener survived, Emily was fatally shot by a rebel's bullet. The brave driver Shola immediately retaliated, killing the rebel on the spot. In her final moments, Emily implored her husband to abandon such a violent life and to ensure their son Conrad would never have to be involved in wars and conflicts. Orlando, heartbroken but resolute, promised her that he would honor her dying wish at any cost. The story then leaps 12 years into the future. Orlando, now retired from active duty, was living a quiet, luxurious life in a grand villa with his son Conrad and a few household staff. However, Conrad longed for more than this sheltered existence. He dreamed of action, of battlefields and bravery. Secretly, he trained in combat with Shola, preparing for a life his father wished to shield him from. On Conrad's 18th birthday, Orlando decided to take him to Britain's finest tailor shop, the Kingsman. It was the same shop where Orlando's father had bought him his first suit, and now it was Conrad's turn to wear a symbol of adulthood. Serendipitously, Orlando encountered his old friend General Kitchener there, now a prominent British officer. During their conversation, Orlando learned of an impending diplomatic visit by Austria's crown prince, who was coming to Britain to strengthen relations between the two nations. At the time, Austria was under the control of Germany, Britain's greatest adversary, a rivalry as significant as today's geopolitical tensions between the United States and Russia. Kitchener invited Orlando to attend the event welcoming the Austrian prince. Meanwhile, a secluded house perched atop a vast mountain came into view. This house was the venue for a secret meeting of high-ranking officials from various countries. Their leader arrived and distributed rings, each containing a cyanide tablet, an assurance that no captured agent would ever betray their secrets. At this meeting, the leader assigned one of his agents a deadly mission: to assassinate Austria's crown prince in Britain. The prince arrived in Britain and embarked on a journey with General Kitchener and Orlando, joined by Conrad. Hidden among the bustling crowds, the agent seized an opportunity and hurled a bomb at their car. However, young Conrad's quick reflexes saved the day, as he managed to throw the bomb away just in time, averting disaster. Meanwhile, the agent, frustrated by his failure, decided to take his own life by ingesting cyanide. But just then, he noticed the crown prince passing by with his wife. Without a second thought, the agent opened fire recklessly, killing both the prince and his wife. The incident sent shockwaves through Britain. Orlando, shaken and burdened, decided to return home with his son. Yet, along the way, Orlando voiced his concerns, saying, "Austria is allegedly preparing its army to wage war against Britain, believing us responsible for this assassination." Naturally, Austria's ally, Germany, would come to their aid. However, Germany was already embroiled in conflict with Russia over the Serbian region at that time. It is here that we learn about three cousins who, years ago, had spent their childhood squabbling and fighting with one another. As they grew older, their destinies diverged. One, named Kaiser, became the ruler of Germany. Another, King George, took the throne of Britain. And the third, Nicholas, ascended as the ruler of Russia. Now, with the death of the Austrian prince, the Kaiser was eager to turn those childhood rivalries into a full-blown war between Britain and Germany. We are also introduced to a secret organization, where one of the agents, the chief of Germany's military, constantly provoked the Kaiser into escalating the war. While King George of Britain consistently sought to avoid conflict, his general, Kitchener, began preparing for war under the influence of his subordinate, Mortain. And so, a full-scale war between Britain and Germany erupted. Within just 2 years, Germany plunged into a devastating spree of destruction. Witnessing this chaos, the leader of the secret organization declared, "For centuries, Britain has oppressed my homeland, Scotland. Now, using strategy, we will end the war between Germany and Russia over Serbia, freeing Germany to unleash its full force on Britain. This will be our masterstroke to destroy Britain." On the other hand, Conrad grew restless, determined to join the fight for his country's survival. He couldn't bear to sit idly while his nation faced such peril. Repeatedly, he sought his father Orlando's permission to go to war. However, Orlando, bound by the promise he made to his late wife, refused to let Conrad step onto the battlefield. Meanwhile, the secret organization's agent, Rasputin, concocted a sinister plan. He laced a lozenge with poison and tricked the Russian Tsar, Nicholas, into giving it to his son. Nicholas, a devout Christian, revered Rasputin as a spiritual guide. Faced with his gravely ill child, Rasputin manipulated Nicholas, saying, "You must end the war in Serbia immediately. The deaths of so many soldiers have angered God, and now he wishes to take your son. If you cease the war, I can save your child right now." Desperate, Nicholas promised to withdraw from the conflict, and Rasputin, using his so-called mystical powers, restored the boy's health. Hearing of Russia's decision to halt its war efforts, General Kitchener decided to travel to Russia to persuade Nicholas otherwise. His reasoning was clear. If Russia stopped fighting, Germany could redirect all its forces to attack Britain, ensuring its downfall. At that time, Germany was the world's greatest superpower. Setting out with his aide, Mortain, Kitchener boarded a ship bound for Russia. But during the journey, Mortain ventured onto the deck, armed. Seizing the opportunity, a submarine lurking beneath the waves launched a missile, destroying Kitchener's ship in a fiery explosion. Hearing the news, Orlando was deeply troubled. He realized that some secretive force was orchestrating these events. Meanwhile, his son, Conrad, was consumed with rage. He was determined to join the war at any cost. He wanted to save Britain. Seeing this fiery determination in his son, Orlando finally took him to a hidden room within their house, where their driver Shola and maid Polly were already waiting. This room was nothing less than a secret intelligence office. Conrad was astonished. After living in this house for so many years, he had never known about its existence. He also learned that his father secretly ran an intelligence agency with a vast network that spanned the palaces and offices of kings, emperors, and prime ministers around the world. They employed maids, drivers, and personal assistants to these leaders, using them to collect confidential information to sustain the agency. They had already captured and interrogated the agent who killed the crown prince. While he didn't reveal much, they had managed to uncover information about his ring. Moreover, they had discovered that Rasputin in Russia had misled Nicholas to withdraw from the war, and that Rasputin also possessed a special ring. Knowing this, Orlando decided to set out with his 2 associates and his son to eliminate Rasputin. By doing so, they could save millions of British lives. Their plan was to use Conrad to lure Rasputin, as the man was known to be attracted to men. When Conrad would take Rasputin to a private room, Polly would already have prepared a cake laced with poison to kill him. As planned, they attended one of Rasputin's parties. Since Rasputin despised Britain, he was easily drawn to a British man. However, he wasn't interested in Conrad, but rather in Orlando. To make the plan work, Orlando went with him to the private room. There, Rasputin noticed Orlando's injured leg and used his mystical powers to heal it. But during all this, Rasputin unknowingly ate a piece of the poisoned cake. Moments later, he realized it was poisoned. Acting quickly, he plunged Orlando into freezing cold water, attempting to kill him. He also vomited to expel the poison from his body. Hearing Orlando's cries, Conrad and Shola stormed in and attacked Rasputin. Rasputin, however, was incredibly strong. No matter how hard they fought, they couldn't overpower him. At one point, when Rasputin was about to kill Conrad, Orlando mustered all his remaining strength and attacked Rasputin, drowning him in the icy water. But moments later, Rasputin rose again, seemingly unstoppable. This time, before he could strike, Polly arrived and shot him dead. Upon learning about Rasputin's death, the secret organization's leader sent another agent to Russia to overthrow Nicholas. Meanwhile, on their way back to Britain, Orlando celebrated with his family. But Conrad was still not content. He continued pleading with his father to let him join the army. Yet, as always, his father firmly denied his request. The next day, Conrad secretly left his father a letter and went off to join army training. Meanwhile, Agent Zemo tried to convince the Kaiser that America, being Britain's ally, had already suffered the destruction of several of its ships because of this war. If America decided to side with Britain and launch an attack on them, Germany would lose the war. To preempt this, Zemo suggested that Germany collaborate with Mexico on a counter-strategy. Without delay, the Kaiser sent a secret telegram to Mexico. As soon as the British intelligence agency and Orlando's personal operative, Polly, learned of the telegram, they began working tirelessly to decode the secret message. By then, Conrad had completed his military training and was ready to go to war. Meanwhile, Polly successfully decoded the Kaiser's message, revealing that Germany had instructed Mexico to attack America. This would distract America with a war against Mexico, allowing Germany to focus entirely on its conflict with Britain. Polly was overjoyed at cracking the message, because if this information reached the American president before Mexico could strike, America would attack Germany, ensuring Britain's victory in the war. Although the message was sent to America in time, it had no effect because the president dismissed it as a hoax. The president demanded more evidence against Germany, as Mexico was considered too weak to pose a significant threat. Thus, America did not perceive Mexico's involvement as a serious danger. Meanwhile, when Conrad went to collect his weapons for the battlefield, he discovered that his father had used his influence to transfer him to a trainer's position in the army. But Conrad's heart was set on fighting. Determined, he handed his uniform, ID card, and all credentials to his friend Archie and sent him back to his father, while Conrad himself went straight to the front lines. The battlefield, however, was a terrifying place. On his very first day, a British soldier carrying stolen German intelligence was trying to escape the enemy. Gunfire erupted from both sides. At one point, a German grenade struck, killing the escaping soldier on the spot. That night, the British soldiers planned to send a small team to retrieve the confidential documents from the dead body. Conrad was the most eager to volunteer for this mission. As night fell, Conrad and a few others moved cautiously toward the body. But they soon came face to face with a group of German soldiers. The Germans, too, had come to retrieve the documents to ensure they didn't fall into British hands. Though both sides had weapons, they couldn't use them because the sound of gunfire would attract reinforcements from both sides, leading to inevitable death. A silent, knife-to-knife combat ensued. After a brutal struggle, when all options were exhausted, gunfire broke out, and chaos ensued with bullets flying from every direction. Conrad barely survived, falling into a trench. There, he saw that despite losing a leg to a grenade blast, the wounded soldier was still alive. The next day, risking his own life, Conrad hoisted the injured soldier onto his shoulders, carrying him along with the secret documents. British forces provided cover fire as he ran, but in the final moments, another grenade blast hurled them back into the trench. The soldier succumbed to his injuries, but Conrad, with unwavering courage, delivered the confidential documents to the commander. The commander, impressed by his bravery, asked for his name to honor him. Conrad replied, "My name is Archie." This, however, proved to be the gravest mistake of his life. Among the soldiers was a friend of Archie's from training who, noticing Archie's absence for days, suspected Conrad to be a German spy impersonating Archie. Before Conrad could explain himself, the soldier shot him dead on the spot. Upon hearing the news of his son's death, Orlando was utterly shattered. He couldn't keep the promise he had made to his wife. He couldn't save his son. The weight of this failure was unbearable for him. Meanwhile, the agent sent to Russia stirred up a rebellion among Russian soldiers, ultimately overthrowing Nicholas and bringing the war to a halt. We then see the leader of the secret organization once more, where agents Zemo and Layla report to him. They inform him that Russia is now fully under their control, and Germany can finally deploy its full strength. However, America was still closely observing the war. The leader, determined to keep America out of the conflict at all costs, assigned Agent Layla to a dangerous mission in the White House. Orlando, still grieving Conrad's loss, was a man on the brink of despair. At this moment, King George personally visited him to honor his son's bravery. Conrad had retrieved a critical document outlining Germany and Mexico's plan for war against America. If this document were delivered to America, their support could secure Britain's victory in the war. Seeing his son's valor and the dire state of his nation, Orlando regained his composure. He resolved to do something meaningful for his country. Using a trusted waiter in the White House as his agent, Orlando uncovered that Conrad's recovered document had already reached the president. Though the president recognized the potential danger, he mysteriously refrained from declaring war on Germany. Instead, he frequently engaged in secret discussions with the American embassy in Britain. Through a maid working at the embassy, Orlando learned that the American president was being blackmailed. The blackmailer was set to meet the American ambassador that very day. Disguising himself as the ambassador, Orlando attended the meeting. The blackmailer was none other than Agent Layla, who recognized Orlando instantly. She launched a sudden attack, but Orlando, with his unmatched skill, overpowered her. He tried to extract information about their leader, but Layla refused to speak. As he was about to kill her, Orlando noticed her scarf. It was made of muslin, a material identical to what he had found on the Crown Prince's killer. Orlando deduced that this woman had filmed a compromising video with the president and used it to blackmail him, keeping America out of the war. With the presidential election only 3 months away, the president couldn't risk such a scandal tarnishing his reputation. However, if they could retrieve the negative of this video, America would fully support Britain. Determined to locate the negative, Orlando took Layla's scarf to the Kingsman tailors, knowing it was unique. There, a craftsman informed him that the scarf was made from a rare wool derived from a specific breed of goats raised on a remote Scottish mountain. Hearing this, Orlando decided to hunt down the mastermind behind it all. Along with 2 trusted associates, he journeyed to the mountain. Together, they meticulously planned an assault on the mountain stronghold. Orlando's grief had turned into resolve. The man who had lost so much was now ready to fight for what remained, his country and the justice his son's sacrifice demanded. As planned, Orlando attempted to parachute onto the mountain from his plane. However, the plane suddenly lost control, sending him spiraling into chaos. With immense difficulty, Orlando managed to land precariously on the very edge of the mountain. He was on the brink of death, but through sheer determination, he climbed his way to the top. Listening intently, Orlando overheard the leader furiously reprimanding one of his agents for losing contact with another, Layla. The leader had decided to send a new agent with the video negative to blackmail the president once again. The agent was already descending the mountain in a hand-operated lift. Determined to stop him, Orlando attacked the lift operator. Meanwhile, at the base of the mountain, Polly and Shola engaged in combat, taking down several enemies. During the fierce fight, Shola killed the lift operator, causing the lift to break apart and sending the new blackmailer plummeting to his death. With that, Orlando set his sights on confronting the leader himself. a figure we had not glimpsed throughout the entire story. For the first time, Orlando laid eyes on the leader, and he was stunned. It was none other than Martin, the former subordinate of the late General Kitchener. It was Martin's cunning that had dragged Britain into the war with Germany. He had even escaped from Kitchener's ship and orchestrated the submarine attack that killed him. As the truth unraveled, an intense battle erupted between Orlando and Martin. The fight was brutal and relentless, but in the end, Orlando hurled Martin off the colossal mountain, obliterating the organization once and for all. With the organization dismantled, they retrieved the video negative from the fallen agent and sent it to the president. The president, realizing the magnitude of its danger, burned the negative immediately and committed to supporting Britain. He sent hundreds of thousands of troops to aid the war effort. Finally, Britain emerged victorious in the war. King George personally visited Orlando to thank him for his extraordinary contributions. Germany's Kaiser had already been deposed, but his Russian brother, Nicholas, had been overthrown and executed along with his entire family. In the aftermath, we see Orlando convening a meeting with his closest associates inside the Kingsman tailor shop. It was here that they founded the Kingsman, a formidable secret service agency. Free from political and international pressures, their sole purpose was to work in secret to ensure peace across the world.